Welcome back to New Day right here on TV3 Time for Business, and you've just seen in that video we're going to be discussing mobile number portability, how easy it is and what are the challenges that they've had within the 3 years since it was launched. And I have two guests with me who are going to help give us some light on this issue. First and foremost, I have with me Bob Paylitz, who's the former MD of Casapa and also a telecoms consultant, and also Derek B. Laye, who is a research and communications manager at the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications, and they both join me now. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Okay, so let's just kind of delve in there. I'm going to start with you, Derek. Do you think that the implementation of the mobile number portability overall, looking at it, do you think has been good for Ghana?
I think it's let's track back a bit. I think 3 years before 2011, when consumers wanted to switch from one network to the other because of some particular issues that they had to do so, leaving their numbers behind. So the NCA implemented this policy, which over the period that we have, we can say that, considering the numbers that we have right now in terms of successful ports, we can comfortably say that it's been successful, because when you compare the numbers to other markets, it's not really anything to write home about. And I think that even looking at mobile number penetration, I think looking at Nigeria, which has so many millions of people, comparing it to Ghana, I think we've done so way better than them if you want to look at the first 10 months period. And so I can say that it's been very, very successful. I think that the issue is about giving the consumer an opportunity of choice, and that's what creates the effective competition. This is it used to be mobile operators going for consumers, but this time around it is consumers also having the opportunity to go for whichever network they wish to have, and that creates the effective competition. So I can say that's been very successful since implementation. Okay, Bob, I'll throw the same question to you as well.
Sure. I think we have to define narrowly what is the purpose of mobile number portability. It's not a feature, it's not a service, it's a consumer right. When you have 6 fully competitive operators, you already have, for the size of Ghana's market, a lot of telcos here. And there are always going to be people who are either dissatisfied with some aspect of their present service. It may be coverage, it may be pricing, it may be they can't get through to the call center when they want to call with a problem. It could be anything. Or they may be okay with their present service. It could be coverage, but they want to try something else, some promotion, some additional coverage or feature of another service has them intrigued. Okay? But if a person already is inclined to want to change service, but holds back because their phone number is important to them, all of their family has it, businesses have it, it's on all the station, everything, and they don't do it just because of that, mobile number portability is the solution for those people. And in the 3 years, our anniversary ended, third anniversary was Sunday night, this past Sunday night. By the end of that third year, 1,655,000 successful ports had been completed. Okay? Just in the third year alone, 838,000. And that's an 87% increase over year 2. So people are aware. Part of this is promotion, but in reality, how much noise, how much promotion do you want to do? Let's use the analogy of a road. When you're building a road, there's a sod cutting ceremony, it's on TV, and then when the road is open, there's another ceremony and news conferences. But after that, people just use the road. This is not something where we feel compelled that there has to be a constant promotion about it, because after a while, constant promotion just becomes like wallpaper, like noise. It fades into the background, and you're not achieving anything with it. The fact that we have this huge growth in portability and that such a large number of people have ported tells us that it is gaining acceptance, and some things only become well known to the general public after it's in use for a while.
Okay, I mean, over 1.6 million ports as of within the 3 years of numbers. That's actually sounds like a lot of people. But looking at that, just a sample of people which we spoke to, who we spoke to in Usu, there's still a little bit of miscommunication or confusion about it. First of all, come to you. Why do you think that is? That people are still so confused? Like, most people don't know it's a consumer right.
Well, I think that the NCA did some justice to creating awareness about this whole exercise. There are billboards in town. There was a launch. There was all the media blitz associated with it. But I think that, I think I would like to look at this question from the point of the Ghanaian people. We're just not prone to change. We tend to be, I'm okay, I'm comfortable where I am. And I think that some other people too might not want to port because they think that I think I just want to stay where I am. People also still think that porting is not successful, and I think that bad word of mouth about the whole exercise also has to some extent affected the execution of this porting exercise. People say that if you port, it will take a long time. People are porting people. There's some little of less discipline amongst the vendors that are undertaking the exercise, and I think that to some extent has really affected the full but that to some extent has affected us to see the full beauty of what this whole exercise is about. But I think just to a critical point to this will be that I think that going forward, still comparing our market to other markets, I think Ghana has been very fantastic. It will be good to just highlight some of the things. I think Ghana has been at the forefront of pioneering implementation of innovations in the telecommunications sector in the West African sub-region. If you look at internet, Ghana was one of the first countries in Africa to have the internet and the ADSL broadband services. Ghana was one of the first countries to how do you call it? We were one of the first countries to bring the mobile cellular network to Africa. And I think that as of the end of May 2011, we're the only country in the West African sub-region that had mobile number portability. And I still think that it's really been a success, particularly for Ghana, and people are learning from us.
Okay.
But let me add something to that, though. We're nearly 7 years since the redenomination of the CD. And people are still talking in old CDs. There are some things that you can't beat into people's heads. It's human nature. It just comes with familiarity and time. If we had seen, Derek had alluded to problems in Nigeria. Let me just give you a comparison.
Yes, please.
Because we don't want to talk about the World Cup, but let's talk about it. Neither country has something to brag about. With
we're not in it anymore,
right.
Yes.
All right. Nigeria launched Portability in May of 2013. And that was almost 2 years after Ghana. So there was plenty they could have learned from our experience. And remember that the Nigeria telecom market is about 5 times larger than Ghana. It's huge, huge. In their first 8 months, they reported that they had 88,000 ports. That's what we do in a good month. In the same 10-month period, from May 2013 to February 2014, we did 661,000 ports. Okay? To be completely fair, let's say it starts up slowly. In our first 10 months, starting back in July 2011, we did 287,000 ports.
Oh, wow.
So compared to what happened in Nigeria, this is a roaring success. And I don't have figures with me about what went on in the few other African markets, but I think it's fair to say that porting in Ghana is the only place where it succeeded in Africa, and it is faster and more successful than many European markets too. Europe, the EU, is still fighting to get each of their countries to get porting down to 1 day. In June, our average porting time was 4 minutes and 16 seconds.
I need you to repeat that. The average porting time in June as of last month is how long?
4 minutes and 16 seconds.
Okay.
From the minute the agent says go, he pushes the button and does it, till when it is done and you are on the new network and you have to change your SIM.
Okay.
And that's even more exciting than that. 2/3, 67% of the ports in June happened in 2 minutes or less.
Okay.
And remarkably, 401 ports, I did a check on it last night, 401 ports happen in 10 seconds or less.
10 seconds.
Because the system where your old network and your new network are talking to each other through the central porting system, which is run by Porting Access Ghana, okay, is all automatic. These are not human interventions. These are machines that are required to respond quickly without human intervention.
Okay, now I ported my number about a year and a half ago. I'm still trying to get through, and I had a horrible time, and I think it had more to do with the network I was leaving than anything else. So just to explain what exactly happens. Right now I say, okay, I'm with this network, I want to port over to another network. What is the process? So Bob, explain to us what the process exactly is.
Extremely simple, and that's one of the reasons we're successful. Cheap, fast, simple. You take your phone and you take your ID card, because you know when you join a new network and buy a SIM you have to show your ID. Take your phone and your ID card and take it to an agent on the street for that network, or to one of the shops of the network you want to join. You do not have to talk to the network you're trying to leave. That's not required at all. Okay? The network you're trying to join will fill out a porting request form, and you sign it, and you should read it, you know, but in reality, how many times do people sign up for things and they don't read the fine print? What that form says really is that you understand that your new network is going to close your account at the old network on your behalf. And it's better if you use up all your credit before you leave that network, because you're going to, you know, lose whatever credit remains. Whatever services you had on the old network, okay, you're not going to have them anymore, but you can sign up with similar services on your new network. So it's just like you were going to stop using your old network, start using your new network. The only difference is you won't have to change your phone number. All right, so the agent will fill out the form, you'll sign it, he'll look at your ID, he will look at your face and see that they match, and then he will click a button on his special phone or in the shop in the computer, and that will go into the central system. There will be 4 responses back and forth between the two operators saying, okay, is this one okay to go? The network you're leaving, they're not allowed to say no unless your phone was reported stolen, or they don't even have you on their network. There's some kind of error or something. For example, if the agent had mistyped your phone number when he sent in the request. So there are very few reasons why the network you're leaving is allowed to say no. If you have a postpaid account, a contract, you know, you're billed, they're not even allowed to say no if you owe them money. They're not allowed to say no unless your phone is stolen, essentially, or if you've only been with them less than 30 days. Okay? So
even if they say no, because I know, for example, even with my network, when I was porting, I was on postpaid. They owed me money because I'd overpaid my bill. I think what I did do was, because I know it was postpaid, I went to them first. I went to my network first. And then they were like, okay, we can't let you. I mean, literally, they said we can't. It was like I went back and forth for 3 weeks.
The technical
before,
term,
it was very frustrating for me.
I understand that, but that if you had just gone to the network you wanted to join, and they had handled it the right way, you would have been on that network a few minutes later, and then you could work out at your leisure whatever you want. There is we'll use an example now. Back when you were doing this, there wasn't mobile money so much. It wasn't. But now a few of the networks have this service, and there is a rule, and it's actually captured in the regulations that we had Parliament pass, that says, even though your mobile money account will be closed when you leave your current network, when you port, that network has to give you your money back when you go to them without charging you any fee. Okay, so there is consumer protection in all of this, and it's unfortunate that you had that experience. Now, let's talk about postpaid versus prepaid. Okay? Even though postpaid is a very, very small percentage of the population here in the mobile business, there is no difference in postpaid and prepaid when you are porting. But if you're going to a new network, they may have rules about how you establish a postpaid account there. Okay, it's not like just picking up a chip off an agent on the street. Okay, so obviously whatever rules they have for establishing the account you want at your new network, you have to follow those rules. But the porting is just an extra layer on top that says, oh, and by the way, we're moving the number. Okay, but whatever you have to do to open that postpaid account, go through that first, and then once that's done, port the number.
Because Wahid Idrisa, who's one of our newspaper columnists, he usually comes on. panelist, he was trying to post his number, and he says he's on postpaid, but yet they've told him in order for him to get, and he wants to go postpaid on his new network, and they're telling him, no, you have to now move from being a postpaid to a pay-as-you-go, and then before you can be ported. And I think there was some issue there. Can you, what kind of... Can you explain to us?
The way the system works, it's interesting, really. There is a central system, and it communicates with the systems at each of the 6 mobile operators. Now, each of the 6 mobile operators has their own billing systems, and they're all different from each other. And what you find often at a mobile operator is that the postpaid and the prepaid billing systems are separate, and they don't talk to each other in the same way. Now, I can't, without knowing more detail about your business reporter, about...
No, just newspaper, one of our...
All right.
Yeah,
without knowing the details of what happened to him, it's hard for me to know for sure what happened. But what I suspect is that perhaps where he went to port, they had some prepared SIMs, some chips, okay, that were set up as prepaid, okay? And where he went, they probably only had those. Now, in theory, any operator should be able to move you to a new chip and should be able to define that chip as a postpaid or a prepaid number. I suspect that he ran into a problem where he tried to port at some place where that operator didn't have that staff or that agent fully up to speed on the matter.
Okay. All right, Derek. In terms of...
Sorry to cut you. I think Bob would do the viewers a favor by explaining to them the emergency port system, where people are ported without their own consent. So somebody... there was a story about...
Well, I don't know. Wait, I'm not even aware of that. What do you mean?
Let me give you an example. Like there was a scenario where somebody went to a nightclub and he got drunk, and a lady walked up to him, and the lady told him that, oh, let me have your phone. The next moment he go home, and then he's using a different network. He couldn't use his network, his previous network. It happened.
Wait, okay, wow, so, this is news. Is that even possible? How can someone port my number without me being aware?
Well, she asked him for details, and she sent a text message on his behalf. Using his phone.
But I thought you have to go into a vendor and you have to sign off before they can port you.
Well, systems can act up sometimes, but this happened actually. This really happened.
Oh wow!
And I think the gentleman was assisting her do that, and he was drunk, so he had seen a nice lady, and this was all going on at the moment. But I think Bob could explain to us. There's an emergency 24-hour period where you can
move back.
Yeah.
Well,
without your consent.
So I'm gonna obviously you know more. Can this case obviously is one seems like I'm hoping one in a billion case, but is it possible that somebody's number can just be ported by a text message?
Let me start by saying the things that can happen to you when you've had too much to drink. It's too long a list for this show, but there is a situation, okay, in which it's possible a person, they can't be ported completely without their cooperation. It does require that somebody send a text from their phone at the same time, roughly within 2 days before or after, a porting request is submitted for that. And then in the system, the text message is matched up with the porting request and the port happens. Okay? But there are a number of things that have to happen. The incident that Derek described, I haven't heard about that one, but one thing that does happen is the agents in the street. Now, we know that the agents in the street are enthusiastic, and they're very sales-oriented, and perhaps sometimes their enthusiasm exceeds their integrity. Okay, I like to call them the motorcycle drivers of the telecom industry.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if we didn't have porting available and SIM registration available at all of these agents on the street, it would be a huge inconvenience for Ghanaians. They'd always have to go to a shop, spend the time and money traveling, and then queue up there. Okay? So on the balance, you don't want to inconvenience 1,000 people to protect 1 or 2 people. Okay? Those are always the choices, the compromises you have to make in deciding on systems. So sometimes these agents will tell people things like, this new network is having a promotion for free SIMs, and you can have the same number on both at the same time. And they don't make it clear to people that they are actually quitting their old network. And then they say, hand me your phone and I'll do the registration. But instead what they're doing is sending the porting message. Now, Is this an epidemic? No. I did these statistics, and it is less than 1/2 of 1% of the total ports that even come back and complain about this. Okay? So what we have for those kinds of people who find they've been ported and they didn't intend to port, or they didn't understand something about the porting process, or even something that is more innocuous. Suppose you port to a new network, and then you go home and find the coverage is not good inside your house. Okay, that is nobody's fault, okay, but it's obviously not going to work well for you. The rule in Ghana is that once you have ported, you cannot port again for 30 days. After 30 days, you can feel free at your option to...
So every month I can change my network if I feel like they're not doing what they're supposed to.
But most people don't, by the way. The average for people who port a second time is 122 days.
Okay.
But very few port a second time compared to the people who are just happy with their choice.
All right.
72% of the people who have ported remain ported.
Okay.
So obviously they're happy with their decision.
They are.
Now, so there is an emergency restore procedure, okay, that can be implemented. The normal way to deal with this is if you
emergency restore means I go back to my old network if I'm not happy.
It means there is a procedure whereby you go to your old network and say, hey, I didn't intend to port out. They will raise the issue with the new network, usually by email, okay? And if the old network and the new network agree that the port should not have happened for whatever reason, then, and the customer agrees, okay, then the port can be restored. And we're putting in measures to make that happen more quickly. Right now it happens on the next business day after everybody has agreed, okay? But we're working now to see if we can make it happen same day.
Same day. All right. Now, the good thing for me, I think, about mobile number portability is the fact that it's, in theory, supposed to increase competition as a consumer, right, and so forth. But yet, every single day, you're hearing pretty much almost so many people talking about their networks are still poor. So, in that sense, I'm going to ask you: do you feel like mobile number portability has done enough to get the networks to do and give us better services?
Well, competition and quality of service, I think, are two different matters altogether. I'll save the issue of poor quality of service for a different conversation. But I think that when I talked about effective competition, I think that it's created that balance that consumers would like to go here or they would like to go there. People here, day in and day out, people say that, oh, I move here and I'm still getting the same thing. Well, when you recognize that it's happening like that, it means that the challenges being faced by the telcos they're not different, and because of the market that they operate in. And so I think that, like I said earlier on, I think that you can't really link the two, but I think that operators are also doing their very best to improve on their network service as an everyday noun. Because it's in their license agreements to do so. So I don't think that they're really looking at mobile number portability to say, oh, my customers are moving out, so now we have to improve the network. But I think that it's their responsibility that they keep working at day in and day out to enhance the network. Okay,
but we're just running out of time. But I know initially there would seem like there was some contention with some of the major, well, actually most of the ones who had the most on their subscriber base, that they didn't want to lose. Nobody wants to lose customers. Looking at how the process has gone over the last 3 years, would you say that most of the mobile operators see like this is a good thing and they don't mind if their customers are going?
One thing that in the beginning, okay, in almost any market, there are operators who are afraid of number portability and those who embrace it because they see it as a path to grow. One of the things that was done very differently in Ghana compared to other countries is we all sat together and worked things out.
First, all the mobile operators.
First, NCA set some policies, okay, and the policies ensured that it would meet those 3 consumer needs: fast, simple, reliable, cheap. Okay, that's 4 actually, but we'll discount that. But the point is, so once the policy was set, all of the detailed decisions were made in a steering group that involved all 6 of the operators. Even the choice of which company would win the bid to become the licensed central service provider, that was also an evaluation committee that involved all of the operators and NCA. Everything was done together. I counted it up between our steering group and our subgroups. We had over 100 meetings just in the year before and in the few months after launch. So everything was done together. The operators all understand that if somebody wants to go, they're motivated to go. You don't try and do something to hold on to them, because then you just have an angry customer.
Which was me when I tried to port my number, but I will not mention which network it is.
And very valid feeling. Very valid feeling. You can't invalidate someone's emotions about how they have been treated. But the point is, the operators all understand that every one of them can gain and lose from MNP. As Derek pointed out, it's a fully competitive marketplace. There is no way to say that prices have dropped X amount just because of MNP, or or quality has increased X amount just because of MNP, because there was already competition in the market. So we look at this just as a consumer right. If you want to move for any reason, whether you're running away from something or running towards something, you don't have to change your number. And the operators all understand that there is a constant flow in or out. There isn't any operator that has just been in total loss. And it varies from month to month too. It varies with promotions, it varies with network problems, it varies with pricing, all sorts of things. So basically, we implemented a road that people can jump on and travel anytime they want, and they know that the road works and there's no roadblocks.
Okay, also I'm just thinking, like, is it a question of portability alone? Because, I mean, this question is one, it keeps coming up time and time again. Most people generally feel like we don't get good services all around. There's a particular notion that all the networks are as bad as each other. Is that an NCA problem? Is it the telecoms, or is it us because we have to be stuck with the networks we have?
Well, I would answer that question by saying that generally it's very difficult to satisfy Ghanaians.
I don't think so.
Hang on a second.
I don't think so.
Hang on a second.
I don't agree with that.
I could give you an example. When we came in here, I think if we look in the room right now, everybody has their phones on silent. Why is it on silent if it doesn't work?
Well, we're in the studio. We have to have it on silent.
Because you know that you could get a call, so it works. That's why our phones are on silent. If it doesn't work, nobody will come in and say, "Oh, keep your phone. It's fine." But I think we're doing this because we know that it works. But I think that the issues concerning quality of service, like I said, it depends on the market that you find yourself. People say now and then that, if I'm in Dubai and I have very good calls, are very very fluid, it doesn't cut, you don't get this, you don't get that. Well, I think that in Dubai or in Europe, people don't just dig the ground like we have in Ghana here and cut cables. I think that in Europe, people don't steal diesel from cell sites. It happens here. And these are things that, it's from the mobile operator's point of view. If you cannot make a call, the mobile operator is not happy, because that's the only way that they can make revenue. So when you should look at it from this context. When you want to make a phone call and it doesn't go through, well, the credit is still on your phone, and the telco is not taking
for some
the money.
People. No, trust me, that one I don't agree.
Okay, sure.
Please, there's a lot of times people's credit goes and they haven't made a call, and to get that money back is the most frustrating thing with the operator. I'm sure if we open the phone lines right now, people will tell you their stories.
Well, we serve millions, so you have people calling. That's justified. I could say that, yes, people complain about credits. There could be some very bad days because we work with systems. But I could say for a fact that 92% of the complaints of my credit has been stolen is coming from people using smartphones. Now, let me give you an example.
Okay.
If you have a smartphone here, like almost everybody is doing in this room now, everybody has WhatsApp now. That's one of the basic apps you can find on every smartphone. When your phone is lying down, you could just leave it down for 6 hours or monitor it, come back every other 2 hours and check. You'll lose some little pesos. Okay. The app talks to a remote server which gets data transmitted.
Okay, all right. We're gonna have somebody else join our conversation. We have Kofi Kapito from the Consumer Protection Agency, and he's usually very vocal when it comes to consumer rights. So, Kofi, are you on the line? Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very fine, thank you.
Good morning to David and...
Okay, please, can I have some volume on the studio floor, because we can't hear Kofi Kapito. Kofi, I'm just trying to first hear you. Please, carry on. Yes, what would you like to share with us this morning on what you're hearing?
The question is, the last issue that you raised, where David was trying to justify that they still diesel in Ghana. For crying out loud, when I was giving you my money, you didn't tell me that someone was going to steal your diesel. Or did they tell me your cable was going to be cut? And they shouldn't pretend as if cables don't cut in Europe. There's construction. Yes, I agree with them that maybe we as a nation, we need to find a proper way of digging our trenches. Why are they doing manual digging even by themselves? The telcos, when they contract people, have you seen you go to work, you come back, and the front of your house is that? And they don't even put it back to what it was. The question is, it's all about number portability. The number portability that we thought, I was one of the champions. Mr. Blake, when he was at Papa, I went to him to tell him that would give the consumers a freedom. He told me that wasn't it. But today I'm glad that he has realized that it's a way for consumers to have a way of being independent. The question is, if you port, like you said, and the services are the same, what's the essence? Ask him, he's an American. How many people put their numbers in America? I live there because they have reliable network. You port because there's a better promotion that will save you money or better services for you. You just don't port for the sake that you want to port. Let's do what is right. I agree with some of the things that they are saying that we need to get up. Like they're telling me you could port in 3 seconds and 4 seconds, and my frustration is the same. What do I care? It's not about being able to port the fastest. We are not running 100-meter dash. Okay, what I want us all as people to do, consumers have responsibility, the telcos have the responsibility, the regulator, which is the NC, also has a responsibility. The question is, how would we put all this together? And tell my younger brother David, please stop making us a little bit angry as consumers, as if we don't know what we want, by telling us that you have a cable cut and you do this. Look, recently when this interruption happened, okay, with some network, I've heard how long did it take that network even to send an apology? Just an apology to let Ghanaians know that, oh yes, you did have a challenge. We agree with you. Okay, number portability is another way of making the consumer have a freedom. Unfortunately, when we deployed it in Ghana, as it's like your survey, go around, people who ported feels like, why did I even port?
Okay, Kofi, you're coming up with so many things. I just want to get them at least try to address it one by one. Otherwise,
talking about the portability here.
So can you just hold on for me 1 second? So I mean, the question, I think most people kind of feel into something that I sometimes feel. Do you want to just please hold the line, don't hang up. Yes. And you want to address it?
Well, to be fair, I do recall meeting with Kofi,
yes.
But I think, and his point about number portability is well put. But I would point out that I was promoting and advocating number portability for a full 3 years before I left CASAPA, and it just took NCA and the ministry a while to come around to the same position. Once they did so, which was in February 2010, Ghana was able to go from green light to launch in 17 months, and that is just about a world record too. So once the decision was made, it went quickly. With regard, I don't want to really hold brief for the telcos because that's Derek's job. But let me point out that while I've been to 53 countries and used my mobile phone in all of them, and sometimes there is an attitude of the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I have had just as many problems with coverage and reliability using mobile phones in the U.S. as I have in Ghana. But that is not an excuse that things should not be improved. And number portability does not mean that NCA or the ministry or the other arms of government that have impact on reliability, like the Ministry of Roads and things like that, and ECG and all of those, they know it all needs work. It all needs to be improved. When you look at the effect on your house or your own business of Dumsor, okay, for example, imagine having that same problem over 1,000 base stations. Now again, that's not an excuse. This is the environment we have. There have to be strategies at the operators to cope with it, but we also can't just dismiss the fact that these things happen, and life will get better for all of us if solutions are found to them.
Okay.
Some of that is within NCA's remit, some of that is completely other ministries and other departments of government.
All right, so I'm going to give you a chance to respond to what Kofi Kapito was saying as well.
Uncle Kofi wants to be on my case this morning. I understand. If Kofi heard me right a little while ago, I said that there are certain days that could generally be bad. So when he mentioned a few weeks ago a network going off and stuff like that, like I said, there are certain days that it really could be bad, and they compensated the customers and all that. It doesn't mean that it's not an excuse. I think that informing the customer with information is one of the very, very good things you could do, because when it comes to telecommunications in Ghana, even though it's been here over a decade and people are using it, there's very less information out there in the public, so we end up misinforming ourselves, and it's not working. But there are other people who are also working on the back of telecoms in Ghana today to do smart things and make a living. So I think that I don't want to have a robust with Kofi, but I'm just trying to say that customers really deserve the best. And mobile operators, day in and day out, work at improving their services. And it's also a balance with revenue, taxes that you have to give to government, and where you have to put what. I think that's what really it is about.
All right. I'm just trying to get your opinion here right now.
Okay.
And look, in terms of NC and how they work, do you feel like they've put enough things and measures in place to, I'm going to use the word punish. I know Kofi was so online. Our mobile operators, when they've done wrong, I know that recently a very major network where they put some sanctions on them. But do you think it's enough? Because time and time again, it seems like our mobile operators are not always doing the best for us all the time.
Okay, I think that the NC is doing a fantastic job. I have to say that on air, but I also think that there's an extent to which you can go. Okay, and the recent sanctions that we're talking about was that's like the extreme. That's like the far end. That's the highest you can do. If you ask a telco not to stop acquiring customers, well, they better have not in business. But it was for a month, and they rectified what they had to do and all that, and they sorted the differences out. But I think that, like I said, the regulator is doing a very good job.
Some people felt like that was just like a little slap on the wrist.
Yeah, but when we look around, which service in Ghana pays fines for poor quality? Can you tell me?
All right, okay. I'm gonna Kofi, I'm gonna get your just your final words on this before we. Yes.
Amma, it is interesting that you have somebody who will tell you that because somebody is not doing his or her job right, he too doesn't have to do his job right by the excuse given to you by David right there. Okay, the fact that other institutions are not working 100%, that doesn't mean if you come in as the new kid on the block, okay, or as the new innovator, you should do the same thing as your grandfather did. I mean, look at him. I'm sure he looks much educated and much informed than his grandfather, or maybe his great-great-grandfather. That means you are moving forward. The question is, this excuse in Ghana that, this is Ghana. And look, I don't think when the telcos came into Ghana, they didn't do what is called feasibility study to understand that this is the terrain that is well challenged. This is a terrain that might have difficulties. It's different from the other territories. The question is, no investor, including the telcos, will come to a country as they are trying to make excuses and know very, very well they will not make any profit. I'm not against them making profit. It is good. You are businessmen. But the question is, as a consumer, and I'm telling Mr. Flint, in his country, the United States, even the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, will not allow either AT&T or any telecom company in the United States to take advantage of consumers as the telcos are doing in Ghana. Mr. Bliss, you're an American. I've lived there for 20 years. I understand how things work. The reason why consumers are even happy in your country because they get what is called satisfaction. And they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Don't come and give me excuses that you have challenges. What is the percentage of call drops in the United States? Where's the percentage of all
right.
in the United States.
Okay, Kofi, I'm going to have to sort of cut you there, but thank you for sharing. We're going to allow Bob to kind of respond before we move on. I hope that wasn't a cold drop, by the way.
It works.
Well, I hope not.
But I hope it wasn't a cold drop.
It works.
Okay, yes.
The regulatory regime and philosophy in the U.S. is different. Consumer issues are dealt with by the Federal Trade Commission, and there they deal only with fraud-type issues or charges that were unjustified, things like that. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, actually does not have any quality of service standard it enforces on telcos in the U.S. A well-known incident was when the AT&T wireless network completely crashed in New York City when the iPhone was introduced because they did not anticipate how much data iPhone users would typically use. There was no penalty for that, and in fact no law was broken. So I think Kofi may be misstating or misunderstanding the regulatory regime in the U.S. It's actually tougher here in Ghana. Number portability was introduced for the narrow reason that I explained before. If you want to move networks for any reason, you don't have to change your number.
And you're free to do so.
All right? It is not a substitute for the other things that regulators and the other arms in government and the telcos themselves need to work on. Service can always be better. Okay, but there are environment issues that make it difficult to achieve that, and I think everybody has to understand if you have your power go off in 1,000 places at once, you're running around doing a lot of diesel. Okay, one thing I would say that surprises me, and I learned more about it during the number portability in the past 3 years, is the software systems at each operator. And this can lead to the kind of billing complaints and stuff that you've heard about. Oh, my credit disappeared. Well, sometimes the credit disappears for the reason that Derek mentioned, especially with smartphones. Sometimes it disappears. I used to have an experience where people were mostly just aware how much they topped up and how long it used to last. But they didn't really track how many phone calls they had during that period. And they just said, oh, well, I topped up 2 CDs. That used to last me 3 days. This time it only lasted 2. And they then immediately jumped to the conclusion, so they are cheating me. But you don't really know that. The problem gets even bigger with data when you click on a link or go to your Facebook page and you don't know how much data it's going to eat because you don't know how many megabytes or kilobytes that thing you've gone to is. So there is a need for better transparency in usage so that people will understand, but people also have to take up their end of the role, the consumer, and understand what it is that they are using, what it is that they are eating. You can't suddenly eat 2 plates of rice and expect to pay only for 1 plate of rice.
Okay, just quickly, if you just sum up quickly your last words before we...
Okay, I think in my last words, I think from the Chamber's perspective, our intent right now is to make sure that consumers understand the choices that they make, because the choices that you make on your handset when you are alone might end up affecting you later on, and you might tend to blame someone else for it with issues concerning my call credit is finished and stuff like that. I can give you an example about somebody who was using a tablet in the office. He was on his Wi-Fi and he was downloading something in the office. It was a series, a movie actually. So he left the office, and then the thing was I think about 44% he told me. And on his way home, he had an email. Somebody told him, I've sent you an email. So he switched to data, and then he started reading the email. He told me he had about 20 CDs worth of credit, and when he got home, his credit was done. And he called me and he was shouting, and I was like, hang on, what were you doing? So we had to go over the whole process, and then he said he was downloading. So I was like, check the download. The download had moved from 44% to 72%. I was like, that's where your credit has gone to.
Okay.
So it's all about decisions that consumers make. But I think from the Chamber's perspective, we're going forward to inform customers so that they can make the right choices. Then we'll have less complaints.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you too.
So I guess you can port your number, and at least within 4 minutes, right? So 4 minutes you can port. All right. So I want to say a big thank you to Bob Paylett, who is a former MD of Kasapa and also a telecoms consultant, and also to Derek B. Laye, who is a research and communications manager at Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. All right.